ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا ويهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وجاهد في الله حق المجاهدة حتى أتاه اليقين ونصلي عليه في الأولين وفي الآخرين وفي الملأ الأعلى يا رب العالمين. أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله عز وجل كما جاء في محكم التنزيل. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. Dear brothers and sisters, we always begin with an abundant praise and gratitude. That is the basis of a lifestyle that is founded on submission to divine will, to live our lives for divine purpose, because we have recognized we are surrounded by countless favors and blessings and bounties that our beloved Creator has blessed us with. So today we want to talk about a crucial part of our daily life. How do we interact with others? So we want to review the Islamic character concept as it relates to dealing with people. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. My whole purpose for being sent was to give people the best example of good character. Right? That's his whole purpose. That's why he was sent. Right? And he said, أَقْرَبُكُمْ إِلَيَّ مَجْلِسًا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَحْسَنُكُمْ خُلُقًا. The best and the closest to me among you on the Day of Judgment are those who have the best character. So we're going to talk about today our relationships with the people that are closest to us. So we're going to kind of take from the great self-help writer Stephen Covey, and we're going to say the 7 habits of a successful relationship. Right? What are the 7 habits of having successful relationships? You see, what we learn a lot of times is that people have it backwards. People, in the general interaction in public, they have a very careful attitude and character in dealing with people. But when it comes to their own home, with their husbands and their wives and their children and their brothers and their sisters, they have no concern for a good standard of care and interaction of good character. Right? And so this is backwards. The Quran said, وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا وَبِذِي الْقُرْبَى. So the Quran tells us that if you're going to worship God alone, and you are commanded to do so because that is what brought us into existence, so we are in servitude to our Creator and Provider. Then the next step immediately after that is to have the highest standard of character, respect, and love for our parents, for the people who are taking care of us, who have been providing for us and looking after us since the day we were born. And then after that will be dhil qurba, and our close family members, our brothers and sisters and children and aunties and uncles and all of that. So this is the Islamic, the highest standard of character should be with those in your house. We find in the Muslim community time and time again, brother or sister, that when they come to the mosque, they have this very nice Islamic character and behavior, but then we hear about, unfortunately I have to hear about a lot, that in the household, these people are oppressive dictators, or they are offensive, disrespectful people with no standard that they would ever use with anybody else outside of their family. So this is unbecoming, and so we'll talk about these 7 qualities to make sure that we know what are the ways to build the strongest foundations within our families. Husband and wife, children, brother and sister, colleagues at work we deal with every day, students we deal with, friends, close friends we have. All of those are the closest people. Our interaction with them will be much more consequential than the haphazard interactions we have in public with people we don't very much interact with. So it's more important to focus on how we are with the people who are closest to us, right, than those who are not. And that's why Umar radiallahu anhu, when somebody stood up and they were testifying for the righteousness of some guy, he asked the people, you all are saying he's a good guy. Why? They said, are you related to him? Right? Omar said, are you related to this guy you're testifying about his good? They said, no, we're not related to him. He said, okay, did you work with him? Did you have a business dealings with him? And they said, no, we didn't ever have a business. Did you travel with him? No, we didn't travel. How do you know? We saw him at the mosque. He said, then your witness is invalid, because that is not the real reality of how to know, do you know something about someone or not, right? So this is the definition of how we deal with people, is in our homes, at work, in our general dealings with people, right? So the first foundational habit is sincerity, genuine sincerity. We have to have a desire to please Allah when we're dealing with people. We are not concerned about how everybody feels and thinks. The Quran tells us, قُلْ إِنَّ الصَّلَاةِ وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Right? Tell the people that pure, sincere faith, that my prayers, my religious rites, my life and my death and everything there in between is for the sake of God alone and none other. Right? So we want to learn from the revelation and from what God has revealed, and then we want to act accordingly. After that, we don't concern ourselves with how people think, right? Because people have many differences why they might think. As long as we were sincere for the sake of God, and we know that what we were doing in the Quran and the Sunnah was the right thing, then لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا. Right? At the end of the day, pure sincerity and pure genuine relationship, the pillar of that, we are not looking for a reward or compliment or some sort of gratitude from you. And that's the litmus test. And Muhammad Ghazali in Ihya, he said in his book about reviving the Islamic sciences about spiritual character, he said, if you want to know if what you've done is purely sincere for the sake of Allah alone, then think, did I feel like when somebody was ungrateful to what I have done, that I was annoyed because I've done them a favor? So you start to feel self-righteous, you're bothered that they didn't appreciate you. If that's the way you feel, then you're not doing what you do for the sake of God. You're doing it for the sake of self-interest, ego, and desire. And so the first pillar is sincerity, right? The second pillar is generosity, right? And that's how ihsan is the relationship between the first and the second habit of successful relationships, because the Prophet ﷺ, he said that pure spiritual excellence, it's ihsan, it is to worship God as though you see Him, but because obviously you cannot see God, you know He is always seeing you. So that's the spiritual, divine presence, theological reality. But ihsan as a character trait is to constantly be concerned about how I can cause goodness, uhsin, I will cause goodness to others around me. How I can be selfless and sacrifice my time, my skill set, and my wealth to make those around me feel like they have goodness in their life, that they have been blessed with something, right? Because that's what Allah did to us in creating us and giving us our life. So we should be that way to those closest to us, because He should be the closest to us, and that's how He is, and we are constantly soaking up every minute of every day millions of blessings. So we should be on the outlook. How can I make this person happy? Right? So if I have some skills to offer, I'll give them my time and my skills. If I have some wealth and something to give them, I will. If not, I will always smile at them. Right? Because the Prophet ﷺ said, تَبَسُّمُكَ فِي وَجْهِ أَخِيكَ صَدَقَةً. That if you just smile at somebody, it's an act of charity in and of itself. And that is amazing, because the Prophet ﷺ was far before his time when you look at the science of psychology. So the psychologists and the neuropsychologists, they got together and they did a case study. They did, when people are looking at people who are smiling at them, what happens in their brain? There's some dopamine. Right? What people are using drugs to get, you can give that to them with a smile. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ kana basaman. He was always somebody smiling at people. Right? And so if we're smiling, that's the least we could do outside of giving our time and our skills and taking care of people. The next habit, we're sincere and genuine. We genuinely, for the sake of Allah, are trying to have a good relationship with people. We're not functioning in some cultural, this is what I'm supposed to say and all of that. It's because that's what Allah is pleased with in me. Right? The second one, we're generous. We want to give what we have for others around. Stinginess is never going to get anybody anywhere in relationships. Right? And then number three, to listen. To listen right? And if there's anything that I have learned, you have to listen to people. You have to pay attention what they're saying, right? For the purpose of getting to know their perspective, right? You have to understand people's perspective. If there's any big sign we should put up, is that everybody has a perspective, right? And as long as we all collectively respect that, then we can grow and we can learn from each other. But if one wants to make their perspective, or the two people they know, their perspective is authoritative and the absolute truth, or this person from the get-go in the beginning of a discussion, that their perspective is authoritative, no one will get anywhere, right? Because there's arrogance in that one, right? And so you have to try to genuinely listen to people. That's why the Holy Quran kept saying time and time again, وَجَعَلَ لَكُمُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارَ وَالْأَفْئِدَةَ. If you'll notice here, always in the Quran, when God talks about His blessings upon us, He always mentioned the faculty of hearing, first and foremost. Listening, the ability to hear and listen. And that was mentioned in the singular, right? Sama. There's asma, that's plural, right? But then He mentioned in the plural, absar and af'ida, right? And there's a divine wisdom in the reason why He has put it in this way. Number one, listening, it requires you to be very careful, right? See, you can look and see many things going on and perceive it all and kind of have a good awareness of all of these different things happening at once in your sight. You can taste bittersweet, like lemonade. It's bitter and it's sweet. You know it. You can tell both those are there. At the same time, you can touch things and you can know this one's that, this one's that, right? But if you're hearing lots of things at once, what is that? Confusion. Meaning what? You have to focus when you are listening to people. Why? It was something that was meant to be paid attention to. So that's why it was given the priority, right? And so when you're interacting with someone, you have to listen to them and try to understand where they're coming from. If you do that, then you will get with their perspective, you will understand them, and then you will know how to properly interact with them. If you don't listen to them, then you can't understand why they are saying what they're saying, or what they mean, or what's their circumstances or context about what they're saying, right? So that's why listening is so important. In so many marriages between husband and wife, there is not fair listening, right? Some people, okay, I'm supposed to listen so that I look like I have good character. And they're not really listening, they're just being quiet while the other person is talking, because in their mind, this is what I'm going to say and that's it. We're going to case close this reality once this person gets done talking, right? So that's not true listening. Another thing about listening is, you can turn off the lights. You can look away, right? You can not see something if you want. You can close your eyes, right? But you will always be hearing. It's something that's always going on. And so that's something that you should pay attention to, how you use your hearing and how you focus it. The next one is to admit your faults. So the fourth quality of the successful relationships is to admit your faults. To humbly listen to the advice and take it in. You might, in this discussion with someone, you might come to realize your fault. If you want to be a real leader, you have to say, that thing I have to work on. I've been working on that. That's something I should do better, right? When you admit your fault, that's why إِنَّ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا إِذَا مَسَّهُمْ طَائِفٌ مِّنَ الشَّيْطَانِ تَذَكَّرُوا فَإِذَا هُمْ مُبْصِرُونَ. Right? If you truly have piety, when it comes that Satan and his allies influence you, you are reminded of the right path. You realize your mistake, and then you start to properly act based upon that. Right? And the Prophet ﷺ says, إِذَا أَخْطَأَ الْعَبْدُ وَاعْتَرَفْ وَتَابَ تَابَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ. Right? If someone makes a mistake, and they admit that mistake, and then they begin to try to change that error, then God will accept their repentance. You see? And so this is Islamic character of the best leadership, and anyone who will admit their fault, people will want to interact with them. When someone never admits their fault, and it could be that after genuinely listening to someone and what they're saying, for the purpose of understanding their perspective, you disagree with their advice because maybe you feel they don't understand your perspective. Still, instead of being angry or whatever, you have to say, you know what, that's a good point, I'll look into that, right? So you don't, say, this is ridiculous. how dare you, and all of that, right? This is something that you have to work on, how everybody has a natural mechanism in their psychological ego to respond with defense. Everybody has that. But the way you deal with things, after you have that natural defensive response, and to say, you know what, I'm going to look into that. You know what, I should keep that in mind. Even if necessarily deep down you're saying, I've listened to what this person said, and I don't think that this is a problem, right? But that's their perspective, and they have a right to that. So you don't push them away, you pay attention, right? The next one is to communicate. So you notice we left all the way down for number 5, is to start talking, right? If you're going to have a good relationship with someone else, you have to be sincere. Number 1, genuine for the sake of Allah. Number 2, you have to be sacrificing yourself for their benefit, right? To be godly to others, right? Number 3, you have to listen to people. Number 4, when you're listening, you have to humbly accept that advice and you have to admit your faults. Then number 5, you're going to communicate with them. And communicating doesn't mean authoritatively force your way, right? You will talk to that person and you will tell them, look, you know what, I feel like this, this is what I understand. So you are communicating with that person and you are being gentle, you're being fair, you're being kind, right? You're not looking for faults. See, a lot of people, they're just always on the lookout for something bad. Let me figure this out. What's wrong with this? Why is that wrong? Why it shouldn't be like that? What's that person really, their negative thing is why they're doing it? They're not looking for the good of it, right? That could be a situation that many people looked at and said, that was very, very good. And then some people said, there's something wrong with that. It shouldn't be like that. What's this person trying to say? Why are they acting like that? You know? The Prophet ﷺ was very strong against someone who, the Prophet ﷺ says, مَنْ تَتَبَّعَ عَوْرَاتِ النَّاسِ تَتَبَّعَ اللَّهُ عَوْرَتَهُ. Right? If you're going to go around nitpicking and blaming and criticizing and looking for fault in people, then Allah will do that to you. Meaning what? That's the exception to the norm. The norm is God is merciful, compassionate, forgiving, kind, overlooking, pardoning, remover, eraser of sins. That's how He is. But if you choose not to learn from Him as He is and try to be like that in your dealings with others, then He will treat you the way you want to be treated, the way you treated others, right? Divine justice will come down. And then on the day of judgment we'll be in grave danger because He will nitpick about all of our faults and we have boatloads of them, right? And so we don't want that to happen, so we should not be those people who are constantly looking for problems with people, right? And number 6, we have to be forbearing and patient, right? So this is very important. It is the fact of the matter, husband and wife, father, children, mother, children, brother, sister, colleagues that work together every day, community members, imam community, people who are interacting a lot, at some point, somebody's going to get annoyed or offended. It will happen, right? But you cannot allow your emotional anger reaction to somehow get angry and somehow burst out in emotional anger and get, loud and rude and disrespectful and say very hurtful, mean things. We have to control our anger. Everybody gets angry. The Prophet ﷺ got angry. But how did they know it? Because he yelled and screamed and cussed? No. They said his face got a little bit annoyed. They could see it looking at him. He's annoyed at us, right? So that's how we should be, right? And anytime there's a real problem or something that comes, then you should avoid that situation. It's better, right? There is a fact of the matter, time heals. That's a fact. But however much you put into the time of the interaction that is conflicting, right, is going to be how long it will take for time to heal that situation. So if there's some very strong feelings of conflict come up between somebody that you're close with, and you have that, you should just leave. Go make wudu, go to the mosque and pray, go visit somebody, go, grab a bite to eat, whatever it may be. Get out of that situation because shaitan, he's going to come with a way to destroy the family. And particularly if you're like a father or a husband, you've been put in a position of leadership. You should be the right example. You shouldn't be the forefront of fighting shaitan's battle in your family, right? Right? We should be the one that says, you know what, guys, let's subhanallah, whatever it may be that, these feelings shouldn't be. As Muslims, when there's a bond of love, this should never be broken. Nobody should ever allow something to come between them and someone they love. There should always be room for reconciliation. There should always be a hastening to apologize and forgiveness, right? Man la yaghfir la yughfar lah. Who is not forgiving is not going to have that, right? So the Holy Quran tells us, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, oh you who believe, inna min azwajikum wa awladikum aduwwan lakum fahdharuhum wa in ta'fu wa tasfahu wa taghfiru fa inna Allaha ghafurur rahim. Right? This is the system. This is the divine system. How do we deal with serious problems in our families? The Quran said, oh you who believe, okay? You will surely see and feel from your spouse, husband or wife, and from your children that they're like enemies to you. That's what the Quran said. Surah Al-Taghabun, right? Right on the last page, right? And so, be aware and cautious of them and the situation, right? And then it gives you the formula. If you are pardoning and forgiving and overlooking, then know that that is the way of God. Allah is Ghafurur Rahim. He is merciful and forgiving. So if you're like that, then know you're going to get that from Him. But if you come and you're angry and flip out and all of this and judge and attack and say mean things and vile things, then know you are not in line with divine guidance, right? And this is, we hear it and find out, unfortunately, across the Muslim world. We find out in families we have a very un-Islamic way of functioning. And this became culture. Because why? It's called environmental conditioning. I saw it from dad and mom, from uncle growing up, and so then I repeat the lesson. The same thing. The true spiritual journeyman and journeywoman is the one who looks at their culture, their beliefs, their character, their attitude with a look of review. And they say, you know what? I need to fix that. I need to change that. I shouldn't act like that. I should be aware that my dad acted like that so that I don't act like that. So I don't become that one that I disliked growing up, right? Or the one that I saw happening to someone else, right? So this is where we take a strong, firm resolve and looking to fix ourselves. And the last quality, number 7, is that we do not, under any circumstances, allow ourselves to become complacent and take lying, backbiting, and rumors as acceptable in our presence. No matter from who. No matter from who. These are the most destructive qualities that exist. All of the evil, bloodshed, corruption in the earth is because of lies and slander. I promise you. If you research this issue, you will come to find that behind all of the evil and corruption and destruction and bloodshed, it is lies and slander and rumors, right? That's the whole bottom line of all of it. That is the end of the family and the end of the society, right? And unfortunately, wallahi, I was sitting with some sisters, and the poor sister's been brainwashed by some brother around here. She said, well, you know, we as women, we have a problem with backbiting and gossiping and stuff. I said, hold up, stop the press. Brothers have a big problem, equally or more so, than sisters in backbiting and gossiping. I can tell you that for sure, right? And this is something that should never be, right? A true believer is one that has that audacity. If it's someone under you, your student, your child, and you hear them backbiting, or you hear them gossiping, you should say, that is not the way of a believer, son. Or, you know, that's not how you should talk about so-and-so. Why would you mention somebody in that light? Please don't do that again, right? You know, this is unbecoming. But if it's someone above you, someone you respect, your elder, your parent, or somebody, then you should respectfully tell them, Baba, we shouldn't talk bad about people like that. We know in Islam, you know, you're better than that. You know, you're, mashallah, a good Muslim, right? So you have a respectful way of communicating. You don't say, Baba, you're jacked up. What's wrong with you? How dare you talk about something? You don't act like that, because now you may be saying the truth. Maybe he is jacked up, messed up, wrong, and that's true. But the way you're saying it is sinful, right? So you may be true in your advice, but the way you're saying it is sinful. You have to approach it with the correct attitude. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us and give us forgiveness in our path. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. We've been talking about the 7 habits of successful relationships. How are we going to make sure, according to the Quran and the Sunnah, according to divine revelation and knowledge, that we can build genuine, loving, respecting, mutually understanding relationships? How are we going to do that? Number 1, genuine sincerity. You're not dhul wajhain. You're not two-faced, right? You're genuinely sincere. You're doing it for the sake of Allah, right? That's how you're saying and why you're saying and what you're doing and how you're doing. It's all because that's the way it is pleasing to Allah, right? Number 1. Number 2, you have to be generous. You have to be selfless. Be willing to give your time, your skills, your wealth to make the other person that's close to you feel comforted, to feel like they have goodness in their life. Number 3, you have to listen. We have to listen to people to understand their perspective so we can have proper mutual understanding between us. And arrogance is where one says, I'm above them, I don't have to listen. So we hear from some dad, some kid is trying to talk and genuinely explain, or some teenager or whatever, and the parent is like, listen, I'm not going to listen to you. Hold on, you don't mean it. You're commanding me to listen and you don't listen. You see what I'm saying? This is completely contradictory and hypocritical. You have to genuinely listen. Maybe you'll learn. If you listen to someone, maybe you'll learn you didn't understand the context, you didn't understand their intention, you didn't understand what they mean by that, right? So it's very important. Number 4 is you have to admit your faults when you listen. When you find out, you know what, I probably was offensive. Somebody felt annoyed. Even maybe I didn't intend to offend them or bother them or anger them. You know what, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. That wasn't my intention. You know, I should work on that. I should pay attention to that perception. And then at the end of the day, if you don't necessarily agree with their advice, you say, okay, I'll look into that, but I'm not sure about that advice, right? I'll be aware of it, right? And the next one is communicate. You have to communicate, right? You have to communicate to people who you love to make, it's like one, mashallah, last week, mashallah, many brothers, they came and they said, you know, mashallah, this khutbah was new and refreshing and it helped me to navigate our identity and help our kids grow. And then another brother came and said, you know what, if you would have said like this or explained that better. But then I heard from a few other people that so-and-so is telling so-and-so that this is what they felt about the khutbah, right? And it's not good stuff, so now it became rumor and backbiting, right? When what I said after the khutbah, and everybody here's a witness, I said, because I know for sure, when you bring something new and you suggest change to anyone, it's going, because people get comfortable where they're at and what they thought they knew. And so we need to have a discussion about that, understand what we're saying, why we're saying, and the basis of it, so that we can make a proper decision about our reaction to it and not just emotionally what the heck and lose it. So communication, husbands and wives, children and parents, people who you work with, no matter who it is at the mosque, we have to communicate genuinely and sincerely. If you really want to fix a problem that you feel happened, you go to the source of the problem to fix it. If you go around talk to Tom, Dick, and Harry about a problem that really they're not going to do anything about that problem, then you will never solve the problem. All you will do is perpetuate and build the problem and make it worse, which is the way of shaitan, and that's why we're not supposed to do like that. And then the next one is we have to be those who, whenever we are talking with our family members, we're calm and cool and collected, even when things get out of hand. We don't get all angry, we don't lose it, we don't yell and scream, we don't call people cuss words, we don't say very hurtful, mean things. We're just very relaxed and cool about that, right? And lastly, we do not keep close friends or companionship, even in family, with people who will not stop lying or slandering or gossiping or backbiting. We should set a standard that is not acceptable under any circumstances. It is not right. It's against Islam. It causes many, many problems, and we need to avoid all that. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, please give us sincerity. Please make us people who are sincere to you in all we do, trying to please you. Ya Allah, please make us selfless, humble people doing good for others because that's what you have done for us. Ya Allah, make us people who are listening to each other to learn and understand each other's perspective and to grow as a community, as families, as a result. Ya Allah, please make us people who, when we see our fault, we humbly accept it and admit it and we attempt to fix it. Ya Allah, please make us people who, when we talk to others, we are kind and gentle and respectful of their feelings. Ya Allah, please make us a people who do not have problems with anger and people who cannot control their emotion. Make us people who are calm and cool and collected, forbearant and patient. Ya Allah, please make us a people who we never talk bad about people unless we have the source to deal with it in front of us and we're trying to actually fix a problem genuinely and sincerely. Ya Allah, please forgive us for our laziness and weakness and shortcomings in our religion, in our faith, in our character, in our worship. Ya Allah, please facilitate for us growth and development as spiritual people. Please help us to look into our lives and our character to become better people, more in line with your holy beloved prophet that you sent to us. Ya Allah, please make this center a place of vibrant growth and development where families and community come together and learn from each other, and the richness of spiritual and cultural growth is beautiful and everybody embraces it and everybody looks for the good and the positive, and people do not become overwhelmed and overcome by negative and bad thoughts and feelings. Ya Allah, please remove tyranny, oppression, corruption and evil from the Muslim world, particularly in Syria where the people have been overwhelmed and overcome with corruption and tyranny and bloodshed and evil and corruption. Ya Allah, please give them a way out so they can have peace and they can have comfort. And please stop the oppressors among them from all sides from causing harm to each other. Ya Allah, please make your guidance and the wisdom and the actions of your Prophet the means of our guidance. Ya Allah, please remove all of the corruption and tyranny from the rest of the world, in Palestine and Africa and Burma and Kashmir and here in America where there is a oligarchy and a financial oppression upon the masses. Ya Allah, please make it easy for us to see righteousness and live for it, and send for your peace and blessings and mercy upon your final messenger Muhammad.